All right. Good morning. My name is Cody Frost. I'm 28. I'm 5'10", around 160 pounds. We're just gonna talk about a bunch of stuff. I didn't prepare to talk about anything, but hopefully we will see what comes up. I just got this new motor in the mail. It's a BLDC, that's brushless DC motor. It's really common. The technology has come a long ways for these drones which use them. So they're very lightweight, very powerful, and very high torque. They've got this thing called field-oriented control, which allows you to control them in a very particular way that's field-oriented, and so it's exciting because you can get very low-end torque, and typically they just spin very fast, but now with all the new technology coming out of China, you can do really remarkable things with them that was not previously possible, just with advances in how cheap everything has gotten, which is really lovely. And that's because I've been trying to build this little cube that rolls over and can crawl towards dark spaces. It's kind of referencing beam robotics, which is this whole thing where robots are just behaving simply, but they exhibit complex behaviors and have something of a mind in them. But really, it's coming from this whole thing called this book, Synthetic Psychology, where they kind of suppose that intelligence happens in our perception of things. They call it the gap between perceived intelligence and the real thing. I think it's the analysis gap. So you can get a lot of really great intelligent behavior out of things that just sort of behave in simple ways, which is an exciting area to exploit if you're interested in intelligent robots, because it's kind of happening more in here than it is out there, which is true largely. It's very early in the morning, so thank you all for being here. Thank you, Arjun, for agreeing to do this, and thank you, Ray, for filming it, and Sai, thank you for filming lovely families over, and you, Kate, for coming, and thank you for Arjun Livingston for hosting it. So, getting up at 7 a.m. is kind of a bit of a feat. It's kind of when I just wake up in general right now, because I've been quitting weed, and so at 7 a.m. I'm just awake on the dot, and that's a change from how it was when I was smoking every day. Last semester when I was smoking more, it was I would wake up and I would rip the weed, and then I would rip the weed, and then I would rip the weed, and then I would rip the weed, and that kept me very level and productive throughout the whole day. But because I was hitting a resin vape, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I wouldn't be able to breathe. So I would wake up and I would just be struggling. So I'm trying not to do that, which is nice, but it's also not nice because dealing with trying to be productive without being high is a struggle, because I could really feel my dopamine levels deplete and my ability to focus drop down pretty rapidly whenever I hit a difficult task. So in that situation, it's really easy to just reset by smoking a bunch of weed, and you can kind of lock yourself back into that panic state, which kind of forces you to be productive again. Just because you've got no other choice than just kind of sit down and be in your body and focus. And so that was my tactic last semester, but this semester, now that I'm not, I'm waking up at 7 a.m. So it's kind of this question of what do you do at 7 a.m. When you wake up? And I guess the ideal thing would be, right, if you wake up at 7 a.m., you've got maybe starting the morning with some stretching is lovely, because you can wake your body up in a slow way that way. But I was at a Super Bowl party of an artist I used to work for, and a woman who lived in his place this guy Chico McMurtry, the first artist I worked for in New York. I'm forgetting her name, but she told me that the thing to do the first thing you wake up in the morning is read poetry because you're in that dreamlike state and it's easier to digest it. And I tried that. I did it once or twice, but it was something that I'm still working on. When I was working for Chico, I had just moved to New York and I had gotten this bike out of the trash. And so I was at a fabrication shop and they helped me cut the lock off of it with an angle grinder. And from there I was able to build it up into something that I could ride all the way from Ridgewood to Red Hook, which was something like about a 50-minute ride, but if you're on the train, it takes about like an hour, and so I'm consistently late in the mornings, and so I would always just opt to be there 10 minutes earlier, and so I would ride the bike. But this did a lot of damage to my body. At that time, I was still fairly young. I think this was 3 years ago, I think maybe 4 years ago, and I was something like 24, and I could ride the bike, a really shitty bike with a horrible gear ratio for a long distance, and it wasn't a problem. But after about 6 months of that, my knee started hurting really bad, and it hasn't stopped. So eventually, I got a better bike, and my ratio got a little better, and so I was able to like ride the bike more easily and without pain. But that's one of those embodied problems where once you have a situation where your body is not working the way you want it to, it's very difficult to recognize what's going on and to correct. That process is getting better though. My knee has gotten a lot better over the last 3 years. It really is a 3-year journey to be healing because it's hard to know what to do. Nobody really tells you how to heal from an injury. I mean, when you're younger, it just sort of happens like automatically, but when you're older, you have to do things like stretching and strength training, and you have to change the way you walk and think about the way you move around the world differently. So for a long time, I was experimenting with different gaits, like different ways of like walking around, and that was sort of productive. Trying to activate your feet and activate your toes in different ways, just to like roll across the ball of your foot differently and change the way that the movement works, like through your like foot to your knee to your spinal column, and it really is quite all-encompassing. So for a long time I was just stretching because the exercises were so boring, and when you really sit down and look at it, you're looking at something like an hour long of exercising, which, I mean, quite frankly, it's easier just to live in a body that's hurting than it is to do an hour of exercise each day, especially when you're trying to like survive and work on other stuff. But it's getting better. I'm spending more time doing the strength training and just focusing on the ones that are the most impactful for my recovery. It's gotten a lot better. But so now what I do, so my more ideal morning, when I think about it now, is I wake up, and really ideally I'm waking up at 6:30, or really I'm waking up at 6 and I'm getting on the train at 6:30 because that gets me to the rock climbing gym at 7, which is kind of the only thing that gets me out of the house and into the right space to exercise, because there's nothing more distracting than trying to do stretching and exercising like just in your apartment, because there are so many things to do, so many little things to clean or pick up or like fix or sort or organize or anything like that. So getting into that space is really lovely because it's just, I go there, I do 15 minutes of mobility, I do 15 minutes of climbing, and then I do 15 minutes of strength training. So usually that's something like I'll do like a push to counteract the pull of rock climbing, or I'll do like, and then I'll do something for my knee, and then I'll do something like just like a crunch or something like that for my core. And then I'll try and end it with some stretching, but usually that gets cut. But it doesn't matter so much as long as I've done the strength training, which is the more important thing for my recovery. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, if I'm on the bike, then I can just, my new bike, not the old one, it's one that I got shipped over from Washington. It's all tricked out and very lovely to ride. It's got very easy gear ratio, so it's like easy to pedal. It's broken now, but that's okay. I've got the part coming. So from there, it's like, you can either get on the train, you can take the L to the A to get to ITP, or you can take the bike. And so that gets me into, into the building. And it's kind of this thing where if you are in the program, you get 2 years, but then like you kind of get like a third like glory year, where if you do really well, they'll like pay you like $40,000 for like 20 hours of work a week, and that allows you to just continue to hang out in the space and not engage in the real world, which is kind of what I need, because I'm trying to build this practice where I'm fabricating stuff for artists, like fabricating difficult things for people that it's like a 10-year long journey of like trying to like make these connections and fabricate things for people, where it just literally takes 10 years of just kind of bumming around and making connections, because you have to wait for all the like early career artists that you're working for to like mature and become like mid-career artists, and then you can maybe get a little bit more money, and then someday they'll be late career artists and you can charge, I don't know, like you'll have more projects and you'll have been around for longer. But it's just this thing where you just have to like slog it out for such a long time to get like any sort of like livable thing out of it. And I had a good like run for that early period, because I was working at this shop where I was fabricating all the time. But I was running 3D printers there and doing 3D modeling, and so part of that job is I would have to deal with this big 3D printer called the Massivit. And so that's this printer straight out of, I think they call it Wadi Valley, which is like Valley in Hebrew. I don't think it's a real thing, but it's kind of a tech thing or whatever. It's like their Silicon Valley in Israel. It's like, I think it's like Technion Park or something like that, where they make this 3D printer, and they've got these, they fabricate these big buckets full of resin. And so you have to like have this big 5-gallon bucket of resin, and it was really horrible to deal with it. So I would have to put on a big jumpsuit and like pry open this bucket and move it in there, and the resin got everywhere, and you had to clean it up, and then taking the print out of the machine was this whole ordeal. And it was very much like a touch chemicals job, which is, not the best, especially when you're getting paid something like $28 an hour. But in that period, I was able to start doing the fabrication stuff. And I was able to make a couple things for people in that time that I didn't really have to charge for, and so that got me a year of that 10-year journey down. Eventually, while I was there, I got to pick up more and more of these projects doing what they call physical computing, which is where you can put code onto a microcontroller and have it do things like blink LEDs, mostly just blink neopixels or blink LEDs, because when you look at what props they're doing in films and whatnot, it's mostly just you press a button and a light blinks, which is nice because that's not the most difficult thing in the world. It just has to be reliable and like not fail at the right time. And when I started doing that, I was touching chemicals less. And eventually we got a really big job where I was fabricating something like, I was fabricating something like 3 pavilions for this thing for Uber One. And it took me a long time. It took me like, it was like a 1 month long bill for these 6 pavilions that we agreed to do. And there was this like period of lead up where there was not so much happening, and then kind of everything hit the wall. And I had these 2 people that I was working with, Smriti and Alex. And Smriti couldn't really do anything, she was very incapable, but she was a fine person to have around. And Alex was a very sure thing at soldering and wiring all the electrical stuff, but when we were about like a week out from it, I had already pulled this something like a 70-hour week, and so it was really starting to heat up, and it was just this impossible amount of like tasks to get through, and so much of it was like yet undone. And I remember it was the craziest thing because I finally got like a moment to like not be there, and so I went to see some friends of mine at a show at Drama Gallery, and I remember I just was like at the roof there, and we were talking, and I was just thinking about the week that I had in front of me, and I knew it was going to be like 80 hours or something more than that, and I just started crying for the first time in a long time about just what was going to happen, because I knew what was coming, and I was already so tired I didn't see a way that I could get around it. And to add to the top of that, Alex was telling me that he was getting sick, and he told me that he thought that he had a drug-resistant strain of, I think like gonorrhea or something like that, some STD that he got in Thailand, which doesn't sound like, it sounds like a lot like he's probably seeing a prostitute there, but I don't think that was the case. And it turns out he didn't have that, which was nice, but I just, I really needed him to solder a lot of stuff, so if he was going to be sick, it was going to be really fucked up. And he was also getting paid even less than me, so it's like, how do you even keep this guy around when he's like sick and not getting paid enough to pull these like crazy hours and whatnot. I mean, the thing about it is he's still there clocking away at something like, I think he's getting like 35 and just shows up and does nothing, which is kind of a nice thing to do. He learned how a transistor worked from that Uber job, and so now he can just do all that transistor stuff, and that's pretty much everything you need to do for controlling high voltage load with like, microprocessor level, like 5 voltage whatever stuff, like you can switch off those high and low loads with the microcontroller. And, I mean, that's pretty much everything that you need to do in the real world until you get to like, I don't know, crazy bullshit stuff. So I'm happy for him. He's been texting me recently asking me about leveling the first layer in his 3D printer. He's got I think like an ender or something like that, and I just said, just get a bamboo. It's just not worth it. If you've got $200 in your pocket, you can get a printer that you never have to worry about again. Which is nice if you're trying to learn all that stuff. It's nice to not have to learn things now. It's funny how they talk about that with like AI these days in terms of, they say it can do the job of a software developer, but I don't really know because it goes back and forth. Like sometimes I can get everything done that I need to get done by using AI, and sometimes it just is like the most useless thing in the world. So recently I've been doing this project where it's this cube that like walks around and it crawls towards dark places. And it's just got 6 sensors on it, and so it's really lovely because it just says which sensor on the cube is the darkest, and then turn towards that way. And so when we've role played it, it just crawls like really compellingly. Like we put it in the middle of the floor, and it found its way to under a desk, and then just kind of cruise along under the desk. And so if we can get it rolling, it's going to be really lovely. But God, it's so horrible trying to work with the AI to do physical stuff like that, because it's one of those projects where I wake at 7 o'clock in the morning, or I can't fall asleep, and so I need to like just do something like productive, and so I've been relying a little bit too much on trying to get it to think for me. And it's horrible because when everything comes, it doesn't fit together, it doesn't match. It doesn't think about the connectors at all. So finally we're at a place now where that might be moving forward now that I'm taking a more direct role, and it's nice to just kind of slog through that stuff. You can kind of get just some things arriving at your place that you can then return later, like this BLDC motor. But it's good at code. I mean, when I first started working with it or whatever, my first like Pecan projects that I was doing were like just totally related to like solving like very like easy stuff with like NeoPixels. Like the first problem was like, how do we get this like display that thing fast enough so that like we can get this thing to go. And so the guy I was working under, Paul Ward, he's like a 25-year-old whiz kid, it's crazy. He works harder than anybody in the world. I mean, when my guy is working like 60 hours a week just generically, like he's making like 40 an hour and he makes over 100K just with how much overtime he gets. And he couldn't figure it out with the AI. This is a year ago, or maybe more now. But nowadays I'm not sure that's the case, because we did a project together recently with servos trying to make this pages turn for this thing that went to the Lincoln Center. We just called it the page turner. I don't know. It was just something where they had this photographer that they were working with for their like season of the opera and the ballet, and they couldn't find an artist to like do their like series, so they already have it around, and they were just like, do you want like more money to like put your photographs up for this season? And he said sure. And so he had some money to throw a couple different things, and he bought this French guy. I'm not even gonna try to say his name. He got our page turner, and he got one big sculpture made out of like clay and mache or something like that. And it was so funny because we're busting our asses to try and make this thing work, and we're just working with like a semblance of like the real art book that's going to be there. And we're expecting to get this thing on Monday so we can like dial it in, and we're both working like crazy on this. Of course, I'm AI through all the code because it's like that now. It's that good that you can really do a whole lot with like Claude Opus just for coding stuff. So I hope that I don't have to learn to code at that level again, or at least when you're under a time crunch, you can really get a lot done without thinking about it, which is helpful when you're trying to solve like a complex problem like that in like 2 weeks. It was one of those things where he was like, do you want this job? And I was like, yeah, I mean, but it sounds like a 120-hour problem. He's like, well, we've got like 24 hours to pay you for the problem. And I said, fuck it, why not? There we go. So we're waiting on the actual art book that we're going to be turning the pages on to come. We're waiting for this guy to fly in from France with the actual thing. Just working with like a semblance of it, and he's supposed to come on Monday and come directly to the shop that we're working at to like drop the art book off and see where we're at or whatever, but it takes him a whole other day to get there. And later I found out it's because he went and saw the sculpture instead, which I don't really blame him for, all things considered. But it worked, it worked, and it got me a lot on Instagram, so overall it was worth it. I ended up making $3,000 for it, opposed to I was charging $100 an hour. It's going to be 24 hours of work, but they gave me an extra $600 because it took more like 60 hours, and so I ended up making like 15 hours, which is the rate that I charged for the Uber job, and so it all worked out, and it's nice just to, I don't know, be busy and fabricate something, and it's either that or I don't get paid for all those parts, so doing a job where you get paid for the parts and you just get to learn is much better. I guess another injury that I have, another thing that I'm dealing with just in my body in general is my thumb. And that's like a really weird one because you really need to like use your thumb to like interact with the phone. Which really sucks because my thumb is starting to hurt more and more just from using it too much. And I don't really know what to say about that because it's like, how do you stop using a phone? It's very difficult to like imagine a world where, because I've tried using it. I used the flip phone for like about a year, I think, like on and off. You like use the flip phone and then you just get lost a lot and you have to like navigate around town with like, you know, having directions. And so it's really lovely because you get this really like innate sense of space as you like get lost. I mean, I feel like really like the time that we're learning the most is like when we're getting lost and making mistakes. And so times where I've been walking somewhere and I like miss the place that I'm supposed to be going to and I walk like a couple streets down and I have to like find one of those maps that's on the street and navigate off of that has been like the most impactful like time for like my learning and like being able to navigate the space. But it is a problem to have to ask your partner to navigate you places, and being lost a couple blocks away from where you're supposed to be is not as romantic as it sounds when you're late. So that was like fine. You're able to get some amount of like Google Maps on that phone. So that works to some extent, but it's just like, it's so difficult to have to carry around a phone and a camera and navigate yourself and all that sort of thing. So I ended up getting the iPhone 13 Pro because it's got the 3D scanner in it. But I've never used it. I've never used the 3D scanner. I thought it would be really impactful because I'd be able to just like bring things into CAD and like work with it like that. But unfortunately, it just gives you this weird file without any like units to it. So I did like one thing and I brought it in and it just is too much work. Like I don't know. We tried using a phone-based 3D scanner for another thing for drone show, which is a project that Ray and I had last semester, which was really fun. We tried using a 3D scanner for that. It just wasn't precise enough to get like the modeling detail level that we needed, and so we went for one of the new Chinese scanners, one of the new ones that is coming out, and they just take like all the technology that like Artec worked on or whatever, and they make it for like a tenth of the price, and so. That is pretty nice. It's pretty nice. I mean, the things that they're doing in China with technology these days is just incredible. I mean, if you've got people who've been technicians like working on stuff for like 30 years, it's like they're gonna become great like engineers. Like, I mean, the other thing with Instagram, it's nearly impossible to communicate with people that you don't know if you're not active on social media. I mean, I feel like I've never been rewarded for not sharing a thought. Like, it used to be that I was on Twitter a lot, and so I could write on there, like every single thought that I had, I could write on there, and that got me so many of these connections in my life just from like sharing that like part of myself, just everything I could think of to share, like got me like so much. And I remember we were in London last year and we were meeting up with some friends that I had made like years ago online, and I just realized that if I'm not like active on the internet, I'm not going to be meeting people that I'm not interacting with in real life. And so my potential scope of people that I can meet is like severely limited if I'm not engaging in that like online practice. Which is tough because it really chains you to this like very addictive thing in terms of like the way they make the app and everything. But it's fine, I don't know. I mean, it works. It's something to do with your phone. That's probably the biggest thing that stopped me from using a flip phone again at this point, because I'm working on ways to navigate without it. And I mean, the camera, it's so hard to document the stuff that you're doing without having a camera in your pocket all the time, because you don't want to be fumbling around and like pick out a camera and have to focus it and all that stuff. So I think for now I'm locked in and just trying to develop a healthier relationship and trying to use more text-to-speech and not like type with like my finger in the swipe way and not use my thumb all the time. So it's working to some extent, but I don't know if it's working like fully enough that like I'm gonna get like, I don't know, not having pain in it. We saw a bunch of rats on the way here when we were walking down the street. We saw like this like pile of trash or something like, oh god, I don't know, it was something like 10 rats. And they weren't too close to each other, but they were all, you know, squeaking loudly and really engaging with the trash that they were in. And I kind of like, I mean, the thing that I think is the most interesting about rats is the rat king thing, where they like just the big rat blob. I mean, rats are kind of like one of these things where it's like, I mean, they're individuals, but they like, in D&D at least, they exist in like a swarm, and so their power is really coming from them, like as like a thing that like moves in like a unit with like other rats. Like they're really fully actualized as a swarm, which is like very interesting. And the idea that they get all tied together and all knotted up and like forced to like exist in like this very small place and turn into like one really like body to 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 body entity is like so interesting. I mean, we don't really get that close to each other except when it's in the subway, and people don't really like it. I mean, it was during the blizzard the other day, and I was on the subway, and I was coming from the gym, and so I was taking the L to the A through Broadway Junction, and we were on one of these trains where it's just like you're like super packed in, and this guy started complaining like, man, I gotta get off this train. And I was just like, I don't know, you just kind of have to enjoy it. I mean, it's a level of intimacy. It's not like it is over here though. I mean, we get fairly close to the train over here, but not as close as we do other places. I'm gonna go pee for a second. Oh god, it's kind of cold. I feel like I'm very sensitive to like how badly I have to pee or the temperature in the room or whatever else. And we picked all that up, which is nice. We got all the pee sounds. And we got the sounds of me not washing my hands, which is something I've been doing a lot when I go pee. But yeah, I mean, I'm jealous of rats the way they get so close together. I mean, it really is this thing where it's like, it's interesting to think about how close we can get to each other and how limited we are, and spatially, like by our bodies and in time. Because I mean, it really is the most supreme limit, right? Like the most supreme limits are time and space. I mean, it's got to be, right? Because every moment comes after the next, and so you never have another moment like the one you just had, and so everything is totally determined. I mean, if you look at like the way that things happen, like thermodynamically, it's all this like thing with like, I don't know, energy flows like one direction from like high to low, and so you get this just like unreversible thing that happens over time, and so it's very directional, it only goes one way, and so you just have this like continual renewal, this continual newness that happens in every moment, and so as time goes on and on and on and on, things just continue happening, and so you can never really go back, but at the same time, every single thing, I mean, every single molecule that ever moved is like in that chain of time where it's all happening, where God lives, where you just have to keep moving forward with it. And I mean, you got to think that every passing moment is for the best. Like there's something coming that's gonna like, I don't know, make it all worth it. Like everything that's happened. At least I gotta think that. I read this book back in college in a theology course, and it was really funny because I mean it was like a very impactful book for me, but it was just like this like pre-release copy of something that somebody at like another nearby Western Washington University had written or whatever, and it was just, it's kind of funny when you think about it. Just, it wasn't super well written, but it was these like angels in dialogue, and the big thing is like, why are we separated from God, right? Like, why were we not all created like in union with God? Like, why was that choice made? Because if you're viewing God as this thing which is like triple O, right? Triple O is omnipresent, omnipotent, and another one. But it's a great configuration to use because you really get this like set of precepts to like think about like, you know, theology with that like gives you this grounding to make all these different arguments. But if it's like that, right? Like, wouldn't it just all be the best if we were in like total unity? If we all like inhabited the same space like mentally? If we all were like 100% on the same page and united in that way, we had this access to like revelation, which was like direct, and you didn't have to like feel the separation from God, because it's like in the real world and the way things are, it's like we're separated not only from God, but from each other and from ourselves even. I mean, that's kind of the fundamental thing of it, right? Is that we are fundamentally separated from ourselves, because as we exist in time, we're continually like severed from like the moment before, and so the person that you are from moment to moment is always changing, and you can never really get back to the person that you used to be. And yet in the same way, all those like causal chains are linking you like all the way back to like things that happened like millions of years ago. And it's sort of just like prefigured, but I don't know, I guess the way I resolve the whole thing is that you have to just view like free will as this like thing which is like supremely ordained. Like, why were we created in separation from God? I guess it just has to be because free will is this thing that we have to have. Like, it's just like supreme good. And I mean, it's sort of this question of like, you know, what does it even look like? Like, how free is free will? I mean, because there are so many things which it seems like clearly like we're just like very basely determined by just like, when you think about the mind or whatever, it's just like slop on top of slop on top of slop. You have all these just like very base subtle instincts that like you can like get a robot to do. And so they like, you know, if you have like something that like, I mean, you can make a roach, right? Like a roach is just like, it wants to have its back covered, it wants to go away from light, and then you put a little bit of like food seeking on top of that, and then you get a roach. I mean, that's like a super easy, like they make roaches out of like not even a microprocessor. They make roaches out of just like analog circuits, and so you can get that behavior of like, you know, light turns on and it just starts running. That's not too difficult. And then I mean, when you get down to like our minds, it just goes on top of that, on top of that, and on top of that, and more and more and more of these things are just like reflexes. And somewhere in that whole chain, you just have to like hope that you do have the free will to be able to do anything. And personally, I think it, but you got to think that it's pretty limited. like you gotta think that there are multiple parts to it in terms of like the way our minds work. I mean, even somebody like Plato or whatever is like talking about the mind as like a tripartite system of like, oh god, it's like the will and the intellect and like desire, I think. I don't think he used desire. I think for him it's the people, the nobility, and then the king. And so you kind of have this like level of like everything is in conversation with each other, and so like you have to like, you know, dominate the people with like the intellect has to like make the will like the servant to like control the people, and then you can like, you know, have this level of mind which is like actualized through like the intellect. But I mean, that conception is just so clearly false when you think about all the things that we do, which we do for no reason other than like, we do things all the time which we don't really want to do. I mean, we do things all the time that are just like so founded in desire, and that's where I think like the most interesting thing happens with like Lacan or whatever, in that he just says it's all desire, and I think it really is kind of just all like that. And so maybe you can like steer your desire in a way. I mean, it really seems like the things that you're gonna like get good at or whatever are just the things that you desire to do. Like I don't think that some people are smarter than other people. I just think that they desire different things, and some desires are more productive. Or that like, I mean, because if you think about somebody who's really good at their thing, it's just because they can't stop doing it. It's just because if they can do anything, it's just they're going to do that one thing. I mean, it just depends what you want to do, right? Like, but there are definitely better things to do than other things. I'm not going to say that like it's all the same. But it really does come down to this, like, what is the thing that you can't stop yourself from doing? Because if you're desire-oriented, then everything comes easily. And if you're not, you're going to be in like a big trouble if your desires are unruly. So maybe you can steer it a little bit, but I mean, there really is this separation between ourselves, other people. I used to think when I was younger that if I could just get people to like, if I was in a relationship and I could get that person to understand me fully, I mean, if I just explained everything, that how could I not be loved if they knew everything about me? But that comes down to this the thing in time, right? Where if you've ever blurted out the wrong thing, you know this, because the things that happen before like so thoroughly discolor the things that happen afterwards. Like, you really get to this point where it doesn't matter like how much you explain. I mean, things are so locked in time that like just like the causal chain like keeps you so informed by the past that if you explained everything, it would have to happen in an instant. You would have to cohabitate the same mental space to get that like unity that I desire, to get that like level of like closeness. You would really have to like not even just have like, you know, it would have to be the same brain space. You have to be two people sharing the same brain space for all the time. I mean, so I don't know, I mean, I guess the best we can do is just continually hope. The closest we get, I think, to understanding somebody fully is when you can view their body of work, right? Everything that comes out of them, if you have this, now that it's the past, you can see this atemporal view of a person. Like, I do this a lot when I'm listening to music, when I'm like interested in artists. If you just listen to every single thing they've ever made, and you continually like try to like learn more and understand them, you get this sense of their person, which is informed by like their total body of work, and so you're viewing them at individual moments, like through the work, but also just in time more largely, because you can see things that happened across the course of their lives. And so maybe through that lens, you can get this sort of true view of them as a person that is unbounded by their moment to moment. But unfortunately, it's, when you get that close to somebody, you don't really like them. When you know somebody so well, it kind of becomes difficult to like them because, it's a 50-50 shot. Like, you can like somebody's moment to moment or whatever, and then when you get down to like them as like an individual, like as a person through time, it gets very difficult. You kind of know too much, because they certainly don't have this understanding of themselves, right? Like, it's very difficult to get this understanding of yourself because you're continuing to walk to that moment, and you have this way of viewing yourself which is like locked in time, but a viewer of you doesn't have that, and so you can get this different perspective of them. I think it's interesting, the first person to sort of work this way was this guy, Montaigne, who I've been listening to a lot of his essays, and he was the first person to like talk about himself in his writing. Like, I think I tell quotes that are fun, or stuff like, I talk about others to know about myself, or we know ourselves through speech. Or he also said, how do I know if I'm playing with my cat or if my cat's playing with me? So it's kind of interesting, because you can't get this, his writing is great because he just goes on these crazy tangents. And he's always thinking about death. He's always thinking about death. It's always just one tangent away, he'll tie it back to dying, which he had, some significant people in his 20s die, and that colors his thinking about the subject a lot. He was like a guy who lived in the 1500s, and he was French nobility, and he had this, I think he was 29, he had this prodigy lover, boyfriend, one of those things, or who knows, but he died. And so eventually when he had a wife and a kid and all that, I think he said he got 2 kids of his own flesh and so many nephews or something like that. But he pretty much just locked himself away with all of his books after his 40s. And just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And he's the first person to really write about himself, which is interesting because as he digs deeper and deeper and deeper, he starts to prefigure people like Lacan and have this understanding that I think is really quite revolutionary. Just if you lock yourself in a room and you write all the time, the thing that you're going to come out with is a very true portrait. For my sake, though, I don't have that much time to write, and so I hope that nobody understands me in that way at the end of it. I don't think that it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that great what you find if you continue to do this. If this process continued for years and years and years, I don't think it would be that great. But luckily, we're just going to go for maybe another 45 minutes. We have until 7.
Is it a good cliffhanger? Huh? Yeah.
Oh God, it's just getting colder and colder. When it comes down to it though, I don't think we have any other choice. I think that we have to share these things about ourselves. I think we have to continually express ourselves, because what are the hope that we have of finding other people and of like meeting people and of making friends and having kinship and having some level of, I mean, you have to have people, you have to be understood in some part. You're just going to go crazy. I mean, being all by yourself is it's just going to make you go crazy. I mean, there's nothing more special than when you meet somebody who understands you on this way that you don't. And that's the blessing that people have of ourselves, is that they really can, other people really can see us. Because as separated as we are from ourselves, we also, can find the benefit of, if somebody has this alternative view, it's like you have this level of separation, but maybe somebody else is 15 degrees off or 20 degrees off, and so they can just get this different perspective of this object which exists, that is you. And so I've really never been, I think I've never really been punished for sharing an opinion. I think every time that I've expressed myself has been fruitful. Because it really is like it's like trimming the garden. I mean, if there's something that somebody else doesn't like about you, then you don't have to deal with them anymore, and now they know that. And so if you're continually expressing yourself to the best of your ability, it's just like a filter. Like anybody who doesn't like that is hopefully forced to move away from it, and so you can get this over your lifetime maybe continually refine the people that you're around, and so you get this continual reflection of who you really are through the people that you surround yourself with, and so it's just so important to engage in that process, or else you just end up more and more alone. I really can't stand this winter. I really can't stand the way the snow just goes on and on and on and on. It's so painful. I mean, in all the time that I've been in New York, it's never been like this. It's never been so snowy outside for so long. The first winter that we were here, it was cold. It was really cold. And we were not living in my partner Kate and I, we were not living in the easiest place. We had just moved here, and so we were living in an Airbnb for $1,400 a month, and we were sharing a kitchen and a bathroom with a couple that was on pills and were fighting each other all the time, so that there were times that it was we'd come back and the police were coming to bust up their fight or whatever, so we just had to go back out and keep drinking. And so of all the periods of my life that I reminisce on, that is not a period of my life that I reminisce on. I mean, we made it out of there, which was everything, but it was not, it wasn't great. It was a very long, cold winter. I mean, we moved in January, and so it wasn't the first summer that we really got to enjoy life. It was all new. I mean, it was all new, and that was cool to be in a new place after having been in Washington forever before, but even that winter is not as cold as this one. Because the snow, it's still here, and it just gets worse and worse by the day. Being forced to walk in these little paths and walk behind people who are moving slowly, and I remember the other day I was coming back. For some reason I thought that taking the bus would be quicker to get from downtown Brooklyn back to Ridgewood, and so I took the bus, and then the bus dropped me off 15 minutes of a walk away from my house south of Myrtle, and so I was walking back, and it was 25 degrees, and it was, I was wearing snow pants and everything, and just trudging through this desolate winter icy landscape at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was just oh my God, I don't want to be here anymore. I mean, the city really moves in on you. It really moves in on you. Because you've got everything, but you really can't leave. I mean, it really locks you into this particular space, especially when it's snowy, because you really can't go outside, and then you're just in the apartment. And going outside is so punishing. But there are nice moments. I mean, it's really funny to me when it's desolate outside, and then you walk into like a bar and there's like 30 people there, so you just go from like I don't know, the Arctic all of a sudden, and then you're back in like the real world. But I really can't believe that still here, that we got so much again just the other day. I feel like I can't really talk about the snow without bringing up like weather modification, because it's never been something that I really like thought that they were doing so much. And I mean, it sounds like too crazy to believe, really. And I mean, the way that the thought came to my head was on Instagram, I was watching reels or whatever, and they're doing the thing where they're like, oh, like if you light the snow on fire, like it doesn't melt, like it turns like soot. And so that's, obviously sort of ridiculous. I mean, obviously snow is very well insulated, and so it's not going to melt like under a flame or whatever. But somehow it just got me thinking, because I mean, what it comes down to is like, I know that China modifies their weather to like ensure like a good harvest or whatever. And I was like, why would they not be doing it here? Like, why would they not be doing cloud seeding and like whatever else here? Like, and then it was like, well, if they're not doing it, then we're falling behind as a world power, right? So if they're not doing it, then I'm gonna be pissed. And you look into it or whatever, and it's like, okay, so Florida and Texas have both banned weather modification, and they openly do it in states in the West to try and fill up those reservoirs. They do it in France to protect like their harvests like from hail. I mean, anybody with planes is like, putting silver iodide into the atmosphere to like get a little bit more controlled rainfall. I mean, because just the way, it's not like they're like putting the water up there, it's just that every droplet of water has a little piece of dust or something in there that everything's collected around that causes it to fall out of the sky, right? It becomes like dense enough to like actually come down. And so, I mean, I don't know, I just don't know why they wouldn't do it, right? Like, there's so many benefits. You can crush the protests in Michigan. That's a good one. It's like environmental suppression, like that's like a no-brainer. Secure the water, like onto like, our greatest like region of water, like of the Great Lakes and down south through like New York, like that's an obvious win as well. BTFO the climate people, right? Like it's very hard to be thinking about like, oh, like, the worst getting hotter if like you're like thoroughly oppressed for like a whole month of like just the snow all around you. So I mean, I'd be pissed if they weren't doing it, really, frankly. Like, I don't know, if we're not controlling our water supply, I don't know what to really say about it. I think that we I mean, it's crazy if you think about it as a strategy for keeping the earth from like warming, but it's definitely here. It's definitely here, just in terms of like our ability to like engineer the environment. And so then I was in the dispensary. I was buying weed, and it's two black ladies in there, and the girl at the register is like, we're talking about how sick of the snow and everything, and she's like, and it's fake snow, but I don't even want to talk about it. And I was like, it's confirmed. It's 100% confirmed. And then I was in a coffee shop the other day, and there, a couple hipsters were talking about it too. So I really, to me, that's undeniable evidence. I mean, if black women are saying it, I think that it's true. But the spring is coming, so that's exciting. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Like, when finally you can move around and you don't have to be so bundled up and you can wear a t-shirt and you can exist outside and not feel punished in space. I mean, that's exciting. I mean, getting out of the city and like going camping is like probably the #1 thing that I'm like looking forward to like in my life right now. Like more than anything, just going out for like one day up to the Catskills or 24 hours to like hike out and sleep in a lean-to and not think about anything. We've got this great system down that Kate and I have perfected over a long time. We've got a very tuned in set of gear where the Catskills are really lovely because people have been going up there on vacation forever. So you'll go to like a mountaintop and you'll see graffiti and it's like, John, 1817, or maybe 1870, I think is more realistic. But it's crazy. I mean, they just have something like 100 plus like of these lean-tos, which is like, it's like a cabin where there's one side of it is like an open wall. So you have a roof and you have a floor and you have like all these little things that people have come before you and left. Like there's usually a like a logbook of like everybody like signing in and like checking off, and you'll see some that are like like oh, the noises, they're getting closer. I don't know how much more I can go. So it's fun because you get to camp in this spot that people have been camping at for such a long time, and so it's super developed. You can just go hike out there like 2 miles at most, and sleep in a lean-to, which is a very comfortable way of doing it. And you've got a fire pit, and you've got all that stuff, and then you can just wake up in the morning and go like a longer hike. And so I'm looking forward to that. I mean, it doesn't get much better than being able to go outside. Because I feel like when you really think about the environments that our bodies are like most tuned to, it's got to be the pace of things that happen in nature. I mean, one of my favorite like little like hacks of the brain or whatever is just how one of the slot systems that we have like way deep in there is like tuned to movement. So if things are moving at a certain pace, you just can't help but look. It's totally involuntary. Like it's just a certain pace. Like it's not the pace that like trees grow at. It's not the pace that water moves. It's the pace that like animals with intelligence move through the world. That's the pace at which our brains are like the most attuned. So when you see something in that pace, and I think that waves do come close sometimes, and I think that waterfalls do come close sometimes, it just totally hijacks like everything. Like everything in your brain just totally focuses in on that movement. I remember we were walking on Hampstead Heath in London late at night, and this dog came like running up, and it was probably the most like locked in my brain I've ever felt, because there's this dark shape like moving towards you in the distance, like coming up, and it's on 4 legs and you don't know what it is, and so it's just totally engrossing. It was like, what the fuck? Like I've never really felt that part of my brain be so tickled in that way. And there are a lot of things in nature which are like this. I mean, it's just so soothing and healing to be out there and to be in that level of like stimulation where you feel so totally alert, but also so calm, because you've got, I mean, every one of your like slop systems is like just like ready to be acting like perfectly, especially if you're walking a long distance. I mean, I think that walking a long distance has to be one of those things where we're just built for it. Like, if you think about, the history of like migration of human beings on the planet, it's so much just like walking long distances. It just is a great feeling. I mean, your brain really does just get into this mode where if that's how you're doing, that's how you're doing it. You just go forward and just keep going forward. And I remember every single step of those trips. When I look at a map, I can remember like every single step of that corridor that I went on. Because when you're hiking, there's this thing that they talk about of like, oh, that trail is like a green tunnel. So a green tunnel is kind of where you have like, trees that are coming up and around you. And so it's like this thing where it's maybe not the most exciting hike because you're just going through like a green tunnel, but it, I think speaks more largely like how we perceive the world in general, and that we are going through like a tunnel all the time. Like especially if you're in a new place, you're like going through a tunnel. So if you're in like, you know, a new city and you wake up and you walk down the street for like however long you walk, and then you turn around and then you walk back to your wherever you're staying, in your mind, it doesn't really register that you turned around and walked back. Like that's sort of a secondary system to the whole thing. How existent perception is just as a tunnel, and so you have these like experiences of learning a place where you're just going through tunnels. And as you go more and more and you exist in that space more and more, those tunnels will start to like come together and like become a network, and you get this like understanding of the place that is more complete as like all these like strands and noodles that go out into space like come together and intersect. And it's when they intersect that really things start to make sense, like when place comes together is in that intersection. So I mean the way that we move around in cities or even just on trails is, I feel, sort of unnatural in that way, in that we have these prescriptive like areas through which we end up walking, and so it's tunnelizing versus an open field. And so mapping, I think, becomes especially challenging because you can walk into like a new room on a street you've been in a million times, and all of a sudden you're in a new place, and all of a sudden this like space in space that you existed in only in passing previously, you've now entered, and so the world has become deeper in that area. So I'm pretty excited to go up there and continue to like build that mental map that I have of the Catskills, and continue to crisscross more spots there and learn the trail lanes better and the rivers and all that sort of thing. I mean, you have to really walk up a river to understand it fully, or at least, you know, go through it in several sections and see the water in different places. And something I'm looking forward to. And it's coming, it's right around the corner. I mean, I think in 2 weeks it'll be 60 degrees for the first time in a long time. It'll be 60 degrees, and so it'll be really time, and everyone's gonna bust out like their t-shirts. Doesn't get much better than that. I mean, like biking around the city when it's cold is this whole exercise of managing the temperature of your body, which is very difficult because as you exercise, like, what's happening is you're turning stored energy into kinetic energy, and that process is not 100% efficient. There's a lot of like losses to heat in that process, and so you start sweating and you get all this like excess temperature, which you have to figure out how to vent. I remember, I mean, you think about like a cheetah and how fast they can run, and so really what they're limited in their speed is by the amount of heat that they generate in their bodies, right? Turning that stored energy into kinetic energy, there's a lot of like heat loss that happens like through that process. I mean, I think that even the most effective transformation from like stored energy to like moving energy, like in an engine, is like 30%. So like of the energy that gets turned, like released, like 30% of that goes into motion. The rest of it all just turns into heat. Which is kind of, it really felt like a revelation when you just think about fish and like how they can move for miles and miles and miles, and they swim upstream. They have this one muscle, they just continually flex back and forth, and they can just do incredible things with it. And I realized that the way they do it is just because they're water cooled, right? Like they have this incredible like thermal sink like around them all the time, like so much denser than air is, that all that excess heat just burns off into. So it doesn't get much better than that. If you're going to be like dumping all that energy in your environment, like being in cold water, it really does help you continue to move for a long period of time. And I mean, I admire that sense of place that they have and sense of purpose. Because I mean, a fish is not driven by like their intellect. They're purely driven by desire. And it's desire for place. It's desire to like return to like where they've been, and so sure, you know, they're in like, you know, they're in a prescriptive path, but it's not, I think it's not tunnelizing, because just given like the amount of perception that they have, I think that there's this thing that they can do in terms of the like movement where, what's up, Nate, what's up?
Hi.
I'm good, bro. I'm gonna go pee again and come back in a second.
Hey, you wanna sit?
Sure. Or you can awkwardly sit on the...
Whatever you prefer, but there's an empty seat.
I just don't want to mess up that shot.
I think it's okay. What are you doing?
I was just going for a run. Been out working a bit.
Nice. It's a nice morning for a run.
It's a very nice
It's
morning.
not cold, or not too cold.
It's not too cold, not too wet.
Yeah. There's some ice though.
A little bit.
I almost slipped a bunch of times tonight.
Not as much as like right after the snow days.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit.
Is everything-
Slowly melting away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gonna be done soon.
It's all the salt.
I heard salt's not even that effective.
No?
I don't know. I don't know what's really.
Where are they mapping?
This is like everything Cody's talked about basically, or John's been making on. I forget what that's called. I think there's a word for it.
It's funny that one of the first things that happened this morning was I cut myself on the knife getting the thing ready to go. And so there's little spots of blood all over the place. There's some on the wall, there's some on the map, and what. And cutting myself is not something I'm this used to in fabricating stuff, because it seems like if you're cleaning a 3D printer, if you're doing almost anything, anytime that you're like locked in on a project, you end up bleeding, and I feel that that's something of a little bit of a sacrifice. Just that's how you know that you are fully in the project, is if you get a little bit hurt, if you have a little bit of blood on it. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a project where it's been all the way, going all the way, and there's not a little bit of blood shed. And so having that at the top of the hour is sort of a nice affirmation of, you know, how it's going to go. And a small cut like that, it ends up healing very quickly, and so it doesn't really matter that much. And blood is so bright and vibrant, and it's definitely one of those colors that we're tuned to. I mean, we don't really see all colors evenly, and so having a little bit of red is not the end of the world. We've got about 1 week left until I have to deliver this Cubely project. This little thing, this little cube that rolls around. I mean, it's got a very simple desire to go toward dark places. It's really been keeping me up at night. It's one of those things where I wake up in the morning and I feel stressed, and so I have to start working on it. But it's one of those things where I'm so stressed about it, it's difficult to be productive on it. And so you have to break through all these mental barriers of like what's going to happen to like actually begin to work on the project, and that's taken me a long time. Probably my biggest barrier right now is just getting over my fear of doing a little bit of napkin math and just like running some very simple calculations to see about like how much energy I really need to put into this flywheel to get it to turn. I guess when I talk about a rolling cube, it doesn't really make that much sense, but what it is, so in 2013 there was this project called Cubely coming out of ETH, Zurich, the university there or whatever, and they made a self-balancing cube. And so this was like a research project that took probably like 3 years or something like that, where they made this cube. And what it does is it sits on one side and then it has these motors in it which spin really fast, and then a mechanical brake is applied and it's able to flip up onto one corner and then flip up onto another. And so it's essentially like a control problem, right? It's like an inverted pendulum of like, how do we use these motors to balance out the force of like, you know, gravity of like whatever minor disturbance is to like continue to like keep this thing like held up in the air. And they use similar stuff in like satellites in order to turn them around, just like spinning a wheel and then stopping it and using that like impulse of torque to like have the rest of the body move. And so they did it in 3 years, and then there were more projects like past that. And at some point in the last 5 years, it became an open source project that like people in China were working on. At some point it turned into this thing where previously they had to use like physical brakes, like an actual like, there are different ways of doing it. Like the early projects of this sort by like MIT were like of these self-assembling cubes where they wanted them to like work as a unit and come together and form like complex structures. But it wasn't exactly the same as the Cubely because they were using this brake which was like a belt that like pulled it tight, and so the belt was the mechanical brake, or it had the servo that was the mechanical brake for the Cubely. But now you can get these motors, these BLDCs, where you don't have to have a brake anymore. They can just like brake with field-oriented control. And so this thing that was like a 3-year-long project at university is now something that people can do with cheap components. And you could buy one for like, you know, it used to be $500, now it's $200 you could buy a Cubely that does all the little tricks of like, you know, spinning on its axis and like balancing on an edge and all that sort of thing. So it's a similar project that I'm doing, incorporating this movement strategy into the cube. It's a similar project that I'm doing, but it's different because I don't really care about it balancing, right? I mean, balancing is such like an engineering problem. That's something I feel like that only an engineer would really give a shit about, is having a cube like balance on its corner. I feel like it as a moving object that sort of magically jumps around is so much more interesting. I mean, I think this is where MIT was like, the MIT Media Lab is like so far ahead of like anybody else working in the new technology space, because they're not just trying to like solve like an engineering problem, they're trying to figure out what it would be used for, and so their like self-assembly thing is like interesting. So for my version of it, for this guy William and I version, we're just going to have one motor that spins and one reaction wheel, and then another motor that orients that reaction wheel. And so if it can go on its axis a 90-degree angle, we can get it to go on all 4 sides, and then if it somehow turns over onto one of its other sides, we can lift the wheel up and bop it back up to where it's comfortable again. So if you're not trying to balance, you can get it to work with just one wheel. And I'm sure if we were very talented, we could get it just to balance with one wheel. But I've got till the 10th, and so just having a prototype is going to be good enough. But it's really difficult, it's very blocking to try and think about if it's going to work or not. And I feel like this process of is it going to work or not is the most unproductive way to like, worrying about that is the most unproductive thing because all real progress just kind of happens over the course of like making mistakes, right? And so the sooner you can make a mistake, the better things are gonna turn out, because you've like are able to get to that point where the mistake has happened and then you can have that concrete learning, whereas just thinking about it is like very difficult. And then of course the snowstorm like delayed a bunch of motors and stuff like that, but finally things are coming together where I'm having these parts in hand and I'm able to make these last purchases to get things like going, and so that's the next thing I'm focused on for the next, until the 10th I think. I'm going to try to pull from 9 to 9, that's my ambition, is to work the 9 to 9s, go to the gym before that, and then work those 9 to 9s to get the thing done. And really when you think about the time between now and the 10th, that's like one weekend, that's a Sunday, that's the rest of today, and it's a lot of 9 to 9s. That's going to be a lot of hours that I can like do this thing. And if I can bring my 3D printer into ITP, then I can really quickly move from will to form, especially with the big fat nozzle I've got in there. Because I don't care about the resolution of it, I just care about like pushing a shape through as fast as possible, which makes me feel confident. And my confidence has been growing like in the last couple of days. It was really quite blocking and difficult to wrap my head around before that. But recently it's gotten a lot better because I was able to do just a little bit of CAD and just have a little bit of visualization, and now I have some idea of the total weight. And so now that I've got some idea of the total weight and we've got like an idea of the role play going well and moving around space, I'm finally going to be able to do that napkin math that you're supposed to do like as a first thing in mechanical engineering, of just being able to solve some like very basic principles. And that's kind of where the problem is, of just like having the confidence to do just the little bit of the thing. I mean, and that's the part of just moving fast and like actually making things happen, is what's the quickest I can get just a little thing done? Like what's the quickest I can get just like one part of it done? Like how, like, because oftentimes like the end of the idea is not as important as just beginning it. So that has been my sort of main goal this semester and just in life going forward, is to try and reduce the amount of time it takes between having an idea and making that first step. Because it's oftentimes the idea that you have at the beginning is not where things end up. I listened to this great talk the other day about the mind and motion, and how like some people think that like maybe language is like primary like in our thought, but other people think that it's motion. And I tend to agree, because if you talk to people, like, you know, if you talk to artists or painters or whatever, it's like they're not fully conceptualizing the work at the beginning. They're discovering the work by moving their hand across the page. And so the sooner you can get a little bit of a thing in motion and start working through the ideas, the sooner you can make those mistakes, and the sooner you can get just a little bit going and just have something to begin with. And that is where the idea that you have started with starts to develop on its own, right? Once you put an idea out into the world, you can begin to have it as like a thing that exists, and it starts to gain momentum just from beginning. And trying to use that, trying to get that motion, is sort of my primary aim with this. And it's very difficult, because I think that a lot of times you're just worried about how something's going to go. But just beginning it and having like something start and having something like to work off and iterate off of is just like the most important part of the process. Like starting is the most important part of the process. 100%. I mean, because nothing in the world even needs to be refined. And just putting the idea out there and like starting with it will get you so much further than just thinking about it. And so the other day we finally got the BLDC motor to spin, and then we realized we don't need a BLDC motor. We can just, we don't need FSC, we don't need field memory control, we just need an electron speed controller, and like we can just break that. And so this whole time of like thinking that I needed to have the right BLDC or the right field oriented controller, and when you talk to like an engineer about this problem, they're like, oh yeah, well make sure that the driver is sufficient for the amount of amperage you're going to use, and like, you know, calculate the weight first fall or whatever, and it's like, but if you just start spinning the motor, the rest of it will just sort of follow. So at this point, with my 9 to 9s lined up and scheduled, I'm feeling confident about that. I mean, it's really not that much. It's 6 sensors, it's 2 motors, it's a battery, it's a microcontroller, it's an I2C multiplexer to get all the sensors to align. Because sensors are all on this communication protocol called I2C, and I think even the one motor I'm going to use is going to be on I2C as well. So they all have to communicate over the same protocol, and they're going to have different addresses via the multiplexer. So, all in all, then it comes down to just putting it all on the computer and drawing it and just hoping that it works. So the next test that I'm going to hopefully run over the next couple of days is to just get it to kick, to just try and generate that impulse, to just put it on like a 1D, like a 2D plane of just having the motor on an arm and then spin it as fast as possible and be able to put a little bit of weight onto it and spin that around really fast and then have it stop and see if it kicks up. And if you can do that, if you can get that to happen, then the whole rest of the project can go. And if not, then it's got to change somehow. It's got to pivot. I mean, maybe it's not going to be able to go in the right direction, but it'll just have to spin or something like that. It'll just have to like wiggle around or move in a way which is less coordinated. So, all in all, I mean, I don't know what else really to say. That's kind of everything that I'm thinking about all the time. And with that, I think we should say thank you to Arjun for drawing on the wall for the last hour and a half. And thank you to everybody who came, and thank you to Ray for bringing the cameras, and thank you to Sai for helping with bringing the cameras, and thank you to Living Skin and Nine for hosting this 24-hour marathon and having us come by, and thank you to the world for existing and every moment for passing.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, hopefully it was decent.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
We kick it all now. What time is
Like 4:50?
What time did you wake up?
I was supposed to.
Wow.
Pretty good. I think it's pretty good.
Cody, I call you go to pee on camera 3 times.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's crazy.
I'm gonna go pee again.
Huh? He did sleep, yeah.
This is like
I know. Sounds like
from 4 till
Never.
like 7 in the morning.
Yes.
Why did you want
Or
that?
like 3:30 till 7 in the morning. I asked.
Well, I mean,
So you're a morning person.
so the writing that I've done previously has been all like automatic
One
as
time I
well,
was just
right?
an all-nighter
And what
person.
I'm,
I just wanted to be up all the time, and then I realized that
I-
I would rather.
yeah. So when I had the writing that I was gonna read,
quiet.
it was all generated automatically, right? Like just sitting down and writing for like as long as I could.
Yeah,
Um,
I just thought it was a 24
And
hours.
so when I didn't have access to that, I just figured like
It's possible.
You crashed for a bit.
I could just talk automatically.
What about you, Alice? Did you
I
fall
was
asleep
sorry,
early
I
or
was-
late?
The manager?
in the middle.
Usually
I went to sleep early.
So I would just take.
I get
yourself-
Arjun done this before.
Right,
Yeah.
I can tell this is not easy.
I like your baseball fields.
Thank
I don't know,
you.
so actually that's cool.
I respect both of you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Are you gonna sleep?
Eventually,
You guys
to
gonna
go
do
work in
it?
the yoga studio, so
Oh, well.
after
You guys gonna do anything with the app?
Nice.
You know?
that. No, I check people.
You will take one photo of it and then just start. Thanks, thank you again. Amazing.
Alice.
Nice to meet you.
Pretty much also.
No, I just know Cody.
When is the next group coming?
That's a remote call from Iceland, so they're gonna be
That's so
calling
exciting.
like about a minute.
Okay.
Definitely sleep schedule as well.
So we should be done by
7.
7 November.
6:55.
56. Please be careful. You guys keep touching that, and it's not a thing, so please don't keep touching that.
Did y'all start with Cody Frost in the center?
Yeah.
Okay. It would have been interesting if you started somewhere else and then through Cody
Not.
Frost and connected it back.
Oh, I see. No, he started by, that was the first thing he said.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that tracks logically, but it'd be weird if.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, how do you feel? Feeling pretty good? What do you
Yeah, I
think
feel lovely.
about, do you have plans for the map? You gonna do anything with it, or?
Just roll it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
If only we had a better mark.
Yeah.
It was horrible to write that fidelity.
I mean, this looks so gorgeous though.
I might lose some.
Huh?
I might lose some.
Yeah, I think we're all gonna.
Go continue my run.
Nice.
And then go do the
Oh, yeah,
homework
right.
before work.
Homework before work? Oh.
Work a little bit of competition or something.
Except for when you
You guys come for Cody?
What's the next thing?
We have some friends in Iceland calling in. We're just gonna-
But I think you should, I think you really,
I wonder what time it is in Iceland.
you
Later?
It's about a 5-hour
one
difference.
connection.
Ahead.
Is your brain outside. So you went for intellectual stuff.
You know the.
What can I do?
So next time.
Okay.
Do you need help with anything, Cody?
Yeah.
We'll take it out.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that.
Sorry, this is back.
Did you have to travel far? Oh, you drove? What about you? You live in